Walter Leslie WILMSHURST was born in June 1867 and died in July 1939. He was an English author and Freemason. He published 4 books on English Freemasonry and submitted articles to the Occult Review magazine. WILMSHURST was initiated as a Mason in the Huddersfield Lodge in 1889. In 1927, he founded the Lodge of Living Stones, number 4957, in Leeds, which was set up purely in order to study the more esoteric meaning behind Masonic ritual and symbolism.
We are to speak of the fundamental philosophic secrets concealed within the Masonic system. These our system declares to be many and invaluable, and to be kept by Masons in their hearts. They are therefore obviously to be distinguished from the merely formal secrets imparted ceremonially, which are kept in the head and are neither many nor of any value, though, as we shall see, they are deeply significant.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's presentation, From the Quarries, an archive of Masonic lore.
By these secrets is not meant some definite, precise information that can be imparted to or withheld from another person at will, but the arcane truths inherent in the system itself. Truths needing to be extracted from it, like poetry or music from the printed page, by personal effort, and that can be recognized as truths only by the inward responsiveness of the soul itself, after deeply meditating and assimilating them. Hence, we are taught that they are matters of the heart, and that they are communicable only to brethren and fellows, that is, to those whose minds have developed a common measure of spirituality, and then not orally, but only by means of signs, tokens, and perfect points of entrance. By points of entrance is meant appropriate faculties of perception and understanding. For just as to enter into perception and understanding of the outer world we need our 5 outward-pointing senses, so for perception and appreciation of the inner world we need a corresponding inward sensorium. The pentagram, or 5-pointed star, indicates our 5 points of entrance into relations with the world of sense and phenomena by the limited, imperfect channels of the senses. And, to cognize the secret things of suprasensual life, we must have developed corresponding but perfect points of entrance into it in the form of soul faculty, inward vision, inward audition. Hence inward truths and mysteries are inevitably and automatically secret from those who have not yet acquired perfect points of entrance to them. Not because of any capricious withholding of them by some better informed person, but because such men are without the appropriate faculty for perceiving them. Their inner vision is as yet hoodwinked, darkened, and prevented from recognizing them. For all Masons, for all the world, ultimate truth and all the mysteries of being are an ever-open secret. But because all the world isn't yet ripe for knowing that secret, or doesn't want to know it, or imagines either that it isn't knowable or that it knows it already, or at least as much of it as is needed for present purposes, it continues secret, refusing to be revealed save on its own terms, and lying, as the old simile tells, at the dark bottom of a well, which well is our own soul depths, from which it can only be drawn by our own industry and effort. Hence we find secret orders always existing for initiation into these secrets and mysteries. And in these days, when we see our own order so little concerning itself with such things, but preferring to direct its energies rather to social and secular purposes, it is useful to reflect that the sole justification for a secret order is that it is intended to provide specialized instruction and combined fraternal effort for those desirous to draw apart from these activities of the outer world and enter a quiet sanctuary where they may contemplate and, God helping, perchance attain personal realization of things which in their nature must always remain secret to the uninitiated and outside their consciousness. Before reaching the heart of our subject, I wish to refer to a preliminary matter and to point out that the text of our rituals and lectures discloses a strange combination of two very different and easily distinguishable levels of teaching. A lower and commonplace level, which is simple and intelligible to everyone, and a higher and distinctly esoteric level relating to matters of advanced philosophic wisdom. To the lower level belong the various charges and counsels to morality, and such matters are the simple explanations of the cardinal and other virtues and of the elementary symbolism of building tools. These are matters of no philosophic significance. They have nothing about them distinctive of a secret science or an initiatory order. They inculcate only what might be imparted to non-Masons. The ideals of conduct they proclaim are not higher or other than any uninitiated man of rectitude and good feeling normally acts upon, whilst their interpretations of symbolism are adapted to a quite puerile order of intelligence. Of themselves, they do not justify the existence of a secret order and an elaborate organization to perpetuate them, and their sole advantage is that they serve as the foothills to the higher peaks of doctrine and provide a common basis of elementary understanding and conduct among the members of a society, the majority of whom do not look for or aspire to anything more than good fellowship and pleasant social relations, which could just as easily be found in the outside world. To the higher level, however, belong matters of an entirely different order of instructiveness, matters drawn from and linking us directly with an older and advanced system of philosophic and experimental mysticism beyond the mental horizon of the average brother, who, for want of requisite preparation and instruction, for which he also too often has neither the aptitude nor desire, is not only at a loss to understand the main features of our system, but is precluded from vitally benefiting from it. So he remains an initiate in name only, not in fact. Whilst the order, instead of cultivating the secret science and royal art to which, nevertheless, it pays much empty lip service, degenerates into a vast, semi-public social and benevolent institution conducted upon the same lines and in the same spirit as characterize the outside world, against which our doors are theoretically meant to be shut and closely tiled. How many Masons could say what initiation really is and involves? How many could explain the doctrine of the centre, the meaning of the circle and the point within it, and the two grand parallel lines bounding it, or the implications of the structure and contents of a lodge, of the blazing star or glory at the centre, or manifest any personal experience of the mystical death dramatized in our third degree? How many could explain all that is meant by the star in the east, or testify to its rising in actual spiritual experience and not merely in symbolic ceremony, bringing with its rising the peace and salvation to which that degree alludes, and that open vision, cosmic and beatific, which the Royal Arch ceremony attempts faintly to portray? Yet all these matters, and many more, lie enshrined and embedded within the simpler and more obvious material of our system. And in seeking to disentangle and consider them, the question arises, how is this admixture of elementary exoteric teaching with advanced esoteric references to be accounted for? Was it due to limited knowledge, clumsiness, and muddle-headedness on the part of the compilers of speculative Masonry, as has been suggested by some able Masonic exponents? Or was it intentional? The former view is taken, for instance, in the admirable Masonic papers in Brother A. E. Waite's Studies in Mysticism, where it is suggested that the 18th century worthies who framed our rituals and lectures possessed little or no esoteric knowledge, and a very imperfect conception of the real purpose of an initiatory system. By some means, into which we need not now inquire, there had come into their hands from remoter sources the salient features of such a system, obviously and faithfully perpetuating the self-perfecting doctrine taught in the philosophic mysteries of the past, and common to all the secret schools of both East and West. A system of whose full significance it is suggested that they were unaware, yet one which they were intuitively moved to preserve, and which they amplified and put forward, clothed with some well-meant but cheap and tawdry garnishings of their own. They were moralists rather than mystics. Their ideal seems to have been not the sublime attainments of the perfected initiate, who finds and lives from his centre, but, as their ponderous grandiloquence puts it, merely to become a worthy member of society, to rise in the scale of moral excellence, and to live respected and die regretted. Not spiritual mastership, but smug respectability seems on the surface to have been the limit of their ambition, consistently with which they obsequiously sought the patronage of royalty and aristocracy, to give the order social dignity and attractiveness, and render it free from suspicion of being a cloak for political intrigue. To this view of the conduct of our 18th century progenitors, there is a possible alternative, which, in fairness to them, may be advanced rather because it is possible than that it now can be proved. It is that, in anticipation of speculative Masonry proving attractive to numbers of men not yet likely to appreciate the profounder aspects of initiation science, they deliberately diluted the system by weaving into it a body of simple ethical ideals, within the compass of everyone's understanding. In this way, they conserved the vital points of the traditional secret doctrine for the benefit of those who could recognize and profit by them, and at the same time they effectively crypticized and concealed them from those who could not. To state a personal conviction, I do not believe that speculative Masonry was instituted with the intention of becoming the social and money-raising organization into which it has since drifted. Sociability and relief, but not merely financial relief, were obviously side consequences of such an institution. But primarily, it was a movement made from behind the scenes of public history, towards perpetuating an ancient secret doctrine for the sake of those who might discern and profit by it in the epoch of spiritual sterility, materialism, and religious disruption into which we had fallen and through which we are still passing. As one of our lectures truly affirms, the world is never left without witness to the ancient traditional science, by following which man may recover that which was lost, the ruined empire of his own soul, and the scrutiny of human events indicates that, at all times, behind and within humanity, there stand watchers, guardians, guides, initiates, charged with the task of keeping the witness alive, however faintly, and unobtrusively steering the race towards its destiny of ultimate spiritual perfection. So closely linked is our Masonic system with other and far more advanced expressions of that science that the conclusion is irresistible that it stands in the chain of direct succession with them, and was designed to perpetuate the same doctrine. If this be so, the movement projected some 250 years ago has been justified in that it has familiarized vast numbers of minds with at least an elementary and notional acquaintance with the path of progress which sooner or later we must all realize in vital experience. We may regret, though we need not despair, that of those numbers so few even pass from the foothills of the subject to the heights of its full understanding and personal experiment. But was it not declared thousands of years ago that the candidates are many, but the perfected initiates few? And again, still later, that many are called, but few are chosen. Yet those few are ever ready and anxious to pass on the torch to others, and it is, perhaps, from its light that is due the increasing desire of so many in the order today to rise to a fuller appreciation of what its doctrine holds in concealment, and will yield up to those who truly seek it. Leaving behind us now the mere elementary ethics and symbolism of the craft, and coming to its fundamental philosophic secrets, we have first to ask ourselves what has always been and still is the grand aim and purpose of initiation. Whether in the East, in Egypt, Greece, or elsewhere, and in all eras, it has been indicated by the formula, "Know thyself." It has been to bring a man to conscious realization of that which is the root and basic essence of his being. It is that, and nothing else. And our third degree refers to this when it speaks of the chief of all human studies being the knowledge of yourself. Now, to realize a thing is not merely to have notions of it, but to become it, to make it a living reality, to become wholly identified with it. And what is the root and basic essence of our being with which we are to become identified? The self we are advised to get to know? And here we are at once driven against that which is the root cause of all Masonic silence and secrecy. For this basic essence is something nameless, unspeakable, something beyond all verbal and mental categories, yet not, thank God, beyond feeling, for the heart can know and feel what the head fails to comprehend. Yet to cast it into verbal coinage for the purpose of exchanging ideas, it passes by several names. The East calls it the Self, the Atman, the self-radiant, self-intelligent unitary root of being and deathless source of all derivative life and multiplicity. The Greek schools called it Autos, the self-contained or self-subsistent, the One or the Good. The Hebrews describe it as the sacred and unpronounceable name of 4 letters, Tetragrammaton, or as Adonai, while Christians personalize it as God, insofar as he is immanent in the soul as its concealed vitalizing spirit. And Masonry describes it variously as the vital and immortal principle, as the blazing star or glory at our center, as the light of a master mason which never goes out even when all our other lights or faculties fail, because it is eternal and immortal, whilst our other faculties are temporal and perishable. But by whatever name we label it, however shadowy and imperfect our thought of it, that it is with which we are to become consciously identified by a direct act of self-knowledge. For, as the teaching uniformly declares, the secret of all secrets is that thou art that. To realize this, not merely notionally, but in fullness of direct experience, has always been, and still is, the goal of wisdom and the goal of initiatory science. If this, then, be the purpose and goal of initiation, the fundamental hypothesis and philosophic secret of Masonry is the solemn fact that God and the human soul are in essence a unity, not a duality, and the sole intention of our initiatory system is, by instruction and discipline, to bring about in each of us the conscious realization of that unity. Is not such an hypothesis of necessity a secret? For if it is to become realized in personal experience, it is an experience which must be prepared for in secret, be realized in secret, and remain secret, incomprehensible and incommunicable to everyone save those in the silence of whose breast it becomes experimentally achieved. Moreover, treating initiation science purely from an historical standpoint, it could be shown that this was always the fundamental religious and philosophic arcanum of every initiation system that has existed, one that, under dire penalties for its disclosure, was always rigorously withheld from the uninitiated world with whose less matured religious outlook it was bound to clash. Whence it comes that, following this wise practice, Masonry leaves every man to follow his own religion, in the certain knowledge that every religion, however crude or imperfect, leads ultimately to the one centre, and is a preparation for that which can be realized in its fullness only by initiation. Masonry, therefore, like every initiation system, is not non-religious, but super-sectarian, and directed to secrets and mysteries of being with which popular religion does not deal. It is ontological and philosophic, but not theological. Indeed, it jumps all the theologies, and so avoids the endless bickerings and disputations to which, in the outer world, they have given birth, and it eschews all creedal dogmas, save one. In its constitutions, Masonry posits and exacts acquiescence in but one sole dogma, the being of God. It wisely leaves that dogma unexplained and to be interpreted by each according to his own light. But its acceptance, as you know, is insisted upon as a prerequisite to membership of the order, and the reason for the insistence is that unless God and conscious union with him as our divine and basic principle be postulated as our object of desire and goal of attainment, there is no merit, no virtue, no purpose in initiation rites. Now the science of initiation was, and still is, to promote the separation and eventual emancipation of the spiritual essence, our true self, from this material thraldom, and the craft degrees are a dramatization of the emancipating process. The misconception widely obtains, even among the craft, that emancipation becomes automatically effected upon the death of the material body. But this is not the teaching of the ancient sciences, which declares that somatic death involves only the disassociation of the lower elements of our nature, without ensuring the liberation of the enthralled divine essence, unless that liberation has been previously effected by initiation during physical life. Hence the supreme importance always attached to awakening that essence into self-consciousness whilst we are still in the flesh, and the requisite mechanism of all our parts and faculties is present. For the physical body is the tomb of transformation, in which the great changeover has to be effected, and the night cometh when no man can work at his task of emancipation, and, as the teaching runs, further physical incarnation will be necessary as an opportunity to resume it. The process of initiation is therefore one of regeneration and bringing forward the inmost essence first to birth and eventually to full growth. And of necessity, it involves a corresponding degeneration, renunciation, and mystical death of all the lower principles that obstruct the transformation. It is outlined for us with utmost clearness in our 3 degrees, and progress in it is signified by changes and elaborations in the apron. The first stage involves the purification and subdual of the gross sense nature and the killing out of desire for all material attractions and indifference to the allurements of the outer world. The second involves the discipline and clarifying of the mind till it becomes pure and strong enough to respond to a supernatural order of life and wisdom, and the desire to eradicate from the heart all obstacles to complete union with it. The third stage, the last and greatest trial, involves the voluntary dying down of the entire natural selfhood, and even the destruction of our sense egoism in separation from the universal life essence, until that essence displaces the former limited personal ego and rises into permanent consciousness as a bright morning star, one of those stars or self-radiant beings which, it is written, sang together in the dawn of creation, and that will once more sing together in eternal union and harmony when the great work of emancipation of our spirits from material bondage has been consummated.
When thou seest in the pathway a severed head which is bounding towards our field, ask of it, the secrets of the heart. For of it thou wilt learn our hidden mystery.
In these reflections, I have tried to dissect some of the deeper and more vital arcana of the craft,
from the mass of superficial moral teaching amidst which it lies embedded, and, as I think, deliberately veiled. There remain for contemplation many other valuable philosophic secrets which would require not one, but a series of papers to discuss. Some of these will probably startle and even give offense to the natural mind until it learns to abase and behead itself, and to receive hidden wisdom with the unsophisticated vision of a child. Better, therefore, defer their consideration for the present. When, as the result of the discipline and industry prescribed by our system, we become conscious of the blazing star or glory at our center rising and expanding more and more in us, its self-convincing light will itself disclose to us and justify all that now lies secret and unexplained. But, as the great master of the West enjoined, until it be risen from the dead in our hearts, we are to tell the vision to no man. Whilst following the same instruction, Masonry directs us to lock up our secrets in the heart's safe and sacred repository. Yet what has been said may perhaps suffice to indicate something of the invaluable light and wisdom concealed within our system. And since there is nothing hid which shall not be revealed in due course and to the properly prepared, we may regard the increasing anxiety of so many brethren today to realize more fully the true content and purpose of our order as a sign that at last, after a long period of darkness and perversity, the light of the center is gradually breaking over the craft and restoring to at least the more faithful and zealous of its members the knowledge of the lost but genuine secrets of their being.
For a deep dive into the history, philosophy, and traditions of Freemasonry, subscribe to From the Quarries. You will find hundreds of lectures, presentations, shorts, and other Masonic works written by Freemasons for Freemasons. Visit FromTheQuarries.com or YouTube at From the Quarries.